Today I'm celebrating because I finally got it. The best science fiction movie of the decade. Okay, well, maybe that's not entirely accurate, but it's still amazing. I am of course talking about the movie that just released this week, Project Hail Mary. Now, usually when we talk about end-of-world movies, we're talking about things we are familiar with and we've seen before. This would be things like giant lasers, alien invasions, or maybe a misinterpreted Mayan calendar.
Dead!
Sound familiar? But Project Hail Mary does something much scarier. It makes the villain a microscopic dot that doesn't even know we exist. For a second, imagine waking up in a room. Now, you don't know your name, you don't know where you are, and your only friends are two mummified corpses and a robotic arm that's a little too aggressive with the sponge baths. Not exactly a 5-star Yelp review, right? Well, that's the reality that the main character of Project Hail Mary wakes up to, so let's get into it. See, the entire movie is essentially a detective story, but instead of your typical whodunit where the clues would be fingerprints or who was caught with a candlestick in the maid's quarters.
Makes no damn sense.
We know who did it, and the clues just so happen to be the laws of thermodynamics. Now, to explain why this movie is so good, I need to explain the Petrova line. What is it, and why it matters to the story? In the movie, which is set in and around our time, scientists noticed a thin, glowing arc of light extending all the way from the sun to Venus. Sure, it looked beautiful, but it was actually a death sentence.
It's not growing in me.
And that's because it was a biological infection of the solar system. Basically, a very tiny, space-traveling microbe called astrophage was eating our sun's output, or the energy. Now, on the surface, this doesn't seem like a huge deal because the sun is so massive and these are tiny microscopic organisms, but the exponential growth of these organisms are no joke. If people on Earth can't stop it, that means the Earth's temperature would drop, the oceans would freeze, and humanity would become a literal popsicle in less than 30 years. But what can you do when it comes to a microbe not visible to the human eye that is over 240 million kilometers away?
We don't know.
Well, the obvious answer is to bring together the smartest people on the planet to work together to try and save the sun. Skipping some details from the book and the movie, after scientists discover our solar system's Petrova line, they found out that other systems within our galaxy were also dealing with something similar. However, amongst their studies, they found out that one planet in particular was remaining unaffected by that system's Petrova line, and that is where our protagonist comes in. But to get Ryland Grace from a middle school classroom to a distant solar system, the world had to build the most insane vehicle in human history. Which brings us to the real question of this movie. How do you propel a spaceship across the galaxy without breaking the laws of physics? Well, to understand the Hail Mary, we have to talk about the most terrifying fuel source ever imagined. Alright, so let's talk about the spin drive, because in the world of sci-fi, we usually just assume travel like this happens with warp drives or hyperspace, but Project Hail Mary says, no thanks, I'll take the physics textbook instead. So how do you get a ship, a massive multi-ton chunk of steel, to 92% the speed of light? To put that in perspective, that's about 275,000 kilometers per second. If you tried to do that with standard NASA chemical rockets, the rocket equation becomes your worst nightmare. And you would need a fuel tank the size of Jupiter just to push a shoebox to that speed. It's physically impossible. Unless you find a fuel that breaks the rules. Astrophage. These little black dots are the ultimate biological batteries. They work because they don't just store energy, they are energy. Through a process the book and movie call neutrino emission, these microbes convert thermal energy into mass and back into thrust with nearly 100% efficiency.
Wow!
In physics terms, this is the holy grail. We're talking about E equals mc squared in its purest, most terrifying form. The Hail Mary isn't just a spaceship. It's basically a trillion-ton explosion that they have figured out how to point in one specific direction. But this is where the movie gets a little dark and a little confusing. Time dilation. Because Ryland Grace is traveling at relativistic speeds. 92% of a certain amount of time literally bends for him. While he's in the ship for a few years, an increased amount of years have happened back on Earth. Now, I know I'm probably not explaining this as well as I could be. Go watch the Flash TV show or Interstellar if you want a better explanation. But this essentially means that the stakes aren't just, oh, I need to save the world. The stakes are, save the world before everyone you've ever loved is dead of old age. Now, this really isn't a problem in the book or movie, but physics-wise, it's definitely a real concern. So our main character is racing against a clock that is ticking faster for everyone else than it is for him. And to put it simply, it's a psychological pressure cooker that would break most people even before they've left the solar system. And as we see at the end of the movie, it did in fact break him.
I'm not an astronaut.
If you don't go, you die.
The movie does a good job at keeping that pressure grounded though. No, but like literally. Unlike Interstellar, where pressure and gravity is shown through pushing books off a shelf or writing coordinates in the sand, Project Hail Mary keeps it to Physics 101. I'm not hating, by the way. Like most 20-something-year-old men, Interstellar is one of my favorite movies ever. But in this movie, the gravity is created by using centrifugal force. By splitting the ship in two and spinning it on a miles-long cable, they create artificial gravity. But I think it's finally time to talk about the real star of the movie. Move over, Ryland Grace, because we're talking about Rocky. In a world of humanoid aliens with pointy ears or blue skin, Project Hail Mary goes full-on speculative evolution. Rocky is an Iridian. He is essentially a rock-hard spider made of mercury-saturated stone, but the movie doesn't just make him look weird for the sake of it. His design is a masterclass in nerdy sci-fi. See, Rocky's home planet, Eridu, has an atmospheric pressure 29 times that of Earth. To Rocky, a human environment isn't just thin air, it would be a vacuum that would make his insides explode, and because that atmosphere is so thick, light literally cannot reach the surface. Evolution's solution? Rocky doesn't have eyes. He sees via active sonar. Think about the sound design here. Every time Rocky looks at Grace in the movie, he's emitting high-frequency clicks that bounce off the ship's walls. To Rocky, the world is a series of vibrations, and this is why his voice sounds like that. Now, if you read the book, you know that Andy Weir spends chapters on the translation process. We're talking full-on computer programming. Grace has to build a literal SQL database just to map A-flat minor to the word hydrogen. The movie speeds this up, but keeps the core message intact, that really, math is the only universal language. But after watching them try to talk to each other for a little bit, we hit the first emotional peak of the movie. The moment they realize they aren't just two scientists or mechanics or engineers who happen to run into each other. They are the sole survivors of their ships. Think about the sheer scale of that. Two different species from two different solar systems, both facing total extinction from the exact same microscopic parasite, meeting in the absolute middle of nowhere. Now, I want to address a thought that I had throughout this film, and that is, why does the movie just keep jumping back to Ryland's life before the mission? Now, obviously I knew they needed to give us context and grow with the character, and that was absolutely the right choice to make, but as someone who didn't read the book before watching the movie, I just felt that there was a massive secret lurking in those memories that completely changes how we were going to look at the story. Now, the movie is structured as something called a double narrative. We see Ryland living in the present, solving problems, and Ryland in the past being recruited by a character named Eva Stratt. Stratt is complicated. In any other movie, she would be the villain. She has absolute unchecked power given to her by every government on Earth for one reason, that being survival. She is the person we need, but definitely not one we want to be in a room with. And then we get the reveal. For 90 minutes, we've been watching Ryland Grace and thinking he's a hero, a brave volunteer. But as his memory finally clears, we can see the truth. Ryland Grace was a coward. That's a huge word to call someone, and I know, but let me explain because I don't blame him. Basically, he didn't volunteer. He begged and pleaded to stay on Earth, and he was so terrified of dying in space that he was willing to let the entire world freeze just so he could stay safe in his classroom. Stratt literally had to drug him and force him onto that ship in handcuffs. The amnesia wasn't an accident. It was kind of a gift, and it allowed Ryland to become the man he should have been without the weight of his own fear holding him back. In the climax, Grace has everything he needs to go home. He has the cure, he has the fuel, and he has the probes ready to launch to Earth. And he's safe. He could go home, eat a real burger, and be the most famous man in human history, but he realizes Rocky's ship is failing. Rocky is going to die in the vacuum of space, and his planet will starve. This is the final calculation. In the book and the movie, there is no magical third option. It's a zero-sum game, and if you want a deeper explanation into what that is, I highly recommend you go watch another one of my favorite movies called Arrival, because they explain it better than I ever could. Anyways, Grace looks at the fuel gauge and realizes that he can't save both of them. He has exactly enough astrophage fuel to get home, or exactly enough to save Rocky and stay on Eridu forever. The ending shows us Grace a little while later. He's on Eridu, living in a pressurized dome and teaching Iridian kids science. He saved 2 worlds, and most importantly, he's a teacher again. But this time, he's teaching the most important lesson in the universe, that friendship is a variable you can't ignore. I'm sorry, I know it's cringy, but it's the truth. All I have to say is that this movie is amazing, and it makes you care about a rocky space spider, so like, what could be better than that, right? It's the best sci-fi movie I've seen in a very long time. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you very soon.